Did you know Escape from New York was shot illegally on rooftops of the World Trade Center? Crews risked arrests and their lives, dangling cameras hundreds of feet above New York. But that's only one part of the madness. Here are 20 weird facts about the movie, and the last one is pure nightmare fuel. 20. Carpenter shot Manhattan's Apocalypse in East Street. Lewis after a real fire. Instead of expensive New York streets, John Carpenter turned to East Street. Lewis, a city ravaged by the infamous 1976 heyday shoe building fire. That blaze leveled blocks of downtown, leaving gnarled ruins Carpenter could use for free. He filmed entire nights, even shutting off power over multiple blocks to capture smoking streets, collapsed windows, and desolate wreckage. It saved production cash and made the grim setting genuine. As Carpenter reflected, it looked like a shell, an empty city, dangerous futuristic look. Set designer Joe Alves and Carpenter walked through the smoldering remains and knew they'd found the perfect dystopia. Raw, real, and hauntingly post-apocalyptic. 19. Kurt Russell wore a real eye patch that gave him headaches for weeks. Kurt Russell didn't just act like Snake, he lived it. One day, he walked onto set wearing an eye patch to escape his clean Disney image and became Snake's defining look. The crew adapted quickly. One patch was opaque for close-ups, another semi-transparent for action so he could see and avoid walls. Shooting long nights, Russell pushed through splitting headaches and shifting vision. Yet the pain added intensity. Snake's hard glare was born from real discomfort. Russell joked he'd never bump into lamps if the camera caught it. That gritty authenticity made the eye patch iconic and became an unplanned symbol of Snake's rugged survival aesthetic. 18. The US government actually asked to see the futuristic prison plans. Carpenter's vision of Manhattan turned into a walled prison was so convincing that the US government reportedly inquired about the production blueprints. At the time, in the late 1970s and early 1980s, crime and urban decay were hot-button issues, and the notion of sealing off New York with a giant barrier didn't sound like pure science fiction. The Pentagon wanted to know how the walls were designed and what technology might be theoretically feasible. The filmmakers laughed it off, but the fact that federal agencies even looked at storyboards shows just how eerily believable Carpenter's dystopia felt. What started as pulp entertainment almost crossed over into policy brainstorming, a reminder of how cinema sometimes brushes uncomfortably close to reality. 17. The opening crawl was voiced by Jamie Lee Curtis in secret, that eerie, mechanical female voice welcoming us into Snake Plissken's world. That was Jamie Lee Curtis, John Carpenter's Scream Queen star from Halloween. She recorded it quietly, uncredited, as a favor to Carpenter and producer Deborah Hill. Curtis's crisp delivery gave the crawl a sterile government broadcast feel, yet most audiences had no idea it was her. By 1981, she was already a horror icon, but slipping her voice into Escape from New York added an invisible link between Carpenter's two most famous creations, Michael Myers' Suburban Nightmare and Snake's Urban Apocalypse. Curtis herself has said she barely remembers the session, but decades later, fans discovered the trivia and connected the dots. Imagine Escape without that cold, chilling narration. It would feel far less authentic. 16. Carpenter nearly cast Charles Bronson before Kurt Russell fought for Snake. Snake Plissken was almost played by Charles Bronson, the grizzled star of Death Wish. Studio execs thought Bronson's tough guy image fit the bill perfectly, but Carpenter worried he was too old and too established. Bronson, in his 50s, carried baggage that Snake couldn't. Kurt Russell, meanwhile, was hungry to shed his squeaky clean Disney image. He begged Carpenter for the role, trained intensively, and worked to embody Snake's lean, scarred, burned-out look. Russell later admitted he'd never fought so hard for a part. Had Bronson taken the role, Escape might have looked like another 70s revenge flick. With Russell, Snake became a countercultural anti-hero, launching his career into darker, more dangerous territory, and creating one of sci-fi's coolest outlaws in the process. 15. Lee Van Cleef filmed with a broken ankle hidden under his costume. Veteran Western actor Lee Van Cleef, who played Police Commissioner Houck, filmed much of Escape while hiding a painful secret, a broken ankle. Always the professional, Van Cleef wore heavy boots and long pants to conceal his limp. He was already in his mid-50s, best known for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, yet he refused to slow production down. Cast members recalled that Van Cleef's toughness mirrored his character, grizzled, no nonsense, barking orders even while struggling to walk. Watching the film, you'd never know he was wincing between takes. Carpenter later said he admired Van Cleef's grit, as it added an extra layer of authenticity to Houck, a man standing tall and commanding respect even as the world crumbled around him. 14. Donald Pleasence based his U.S. president on real-life Nixon mannerisms. Donald Pleasence didn't just play the president, he mimicked Richard Nixon. The hunched shoulders, the stiff hand gestures, even the nervous tics were lifted directly from Nixon's public appearances. Pleasence admitted he wanted to embody a leader who looked weak and duplicitous rather than heroic. It worked. His president feels like a cornered bureaucrat, not a savior. The parallels weren't lost on audiences in 1981. Nixon had resigned only 7 years earlier, and the distrust of American leadership lingered. Pleasence's choice added satirical bite to the film, making the president's cowardice in the face of Snake's grit even more striking. Carpenter loved it, saying Pleasence turned what could have been a bland role into a chilling critique of political power and failure. 13. The film's map graphics came from real models with neon tape to mimic neon glow. John Carpenter's team wanted those city grid screens to look futuristic, but real computer graphics were still rare in 1981. So production designers built miniature models of futuristic maps and hand-applied neon tape to outlines of streets and blocks. Filmed in close-up, the glow looked high-tech, even though it was just sticky tape and a practical model filmed under smoky lighting. It's a brilliant bit of movie magic. Cheap, fast, and effective. Fans still marvel that something so lo-fi pulled off such a convincing cyberpunk look. Proof you don't need CGI when creativity shines brighter. 12. Isaac Hayes drove a real Cadillac with chandeliers bolted to the hood. Isaac Hayes plays the Duke, and he arrives in style. It wasn't a prop car, it was a real Cadillac Eldorado with actual crystal chandeliers mounted on its hood, plus a disco ball hanging from the rearview mirror. Hayes loved Flash, and Carpenter wanted larger-than-life visuals that matched the anarchic world of New York as a maximum security zoo. It's absurd, it's flashy, it's unforgettable, and it nails the movie's tone. That ride isn't just transportation. It's a personality statement riding into Maz City. 11. The World Trade Center rooftop scenes were guerrilla shoots, totally unsanctioned. Those iconic rooftop shots with Manhattan smoldering below, completely unscripted and illegal. Carpenter, Russell, and the crew threw cameras onto the roof of the World Trade Center without permits. They filmed quickly, capturing real helicopters, real light, real life, just layered with apocalypse art. Locals later called it guerrilla filmmaking. When you see Snake's glider landing near the battered towers, that tense atmosphere isn't cinematic gloss. It's raw, illegal, and perfectly dangerous. You're watching risky art diving headfirst into forbidden turf. 10. Adrienne Barbeau's shotgun was loaded with real blanks. No movie trickery. Adrienne Barbeau, as Maggie, fires her shotgun with real blanks during an intense scene inside the prison. Carpenter didn't buy CGI or removable props. Her blasts were real, loud, and smoky. There's footage of the muzzle flame licking across the mask she wore, the echo roaring off the walls, and her eyes perfectly reflecting that fiery chaos. That level of commitment added weight to her performance, and may explain why that gunplay scene is still talked about today. 9. Deborah Hill had to bribe gang extras with beer just to keep them from walking off East Street. Louis extras, portraying Snake's punks and gang members, weren't hiring from unions. Many had no film set experience and were more streetwise than studio trained. To keep the raw energy going, producer Deborah Hill handed out free beer between takes. "Just a little trust offering," she joked later. That burned their focus in haze of real-world tension and loose script control, but it kept the actors working and allowed Carpenter to capture feral chaos. A beer-brokered loyalty never looked so fierce on screen. 8. Snake's call sign, Plissken, came from a real tough guy Carpenter knew. John Carpenter struggled to find the perfect name for his anti-hero until a friend suggested Plissken. It belonged to a tough high school acquaintance who sported a giant snake tattoo on his abdomen, and Snake Plissken was born. Carpenter loved the raw, personal energy behind the name. "Anybody with a snake tattooed on them. That's my kind of hero," he said. That little connection gave something visceral to the film. Snake Plissken isn't just a fictional legend. His name ties back to an extraordinary real-world character, grounding his danger and style in a strange, tangible reality. 7. The studio wanted Clint Eastwood. Carpenter fought hard to keep Russell. Studios initially wanted action legend Clint Eastwood to play Snake Plissken, or even Charles Bronson, but John Carpenter pushed back. He insisted on Kurt Russell, an actor trying to escape his Disney image. Carpenter believed Russell brought a leaner, grittier, and more rebellious quality that fit the dystopian anti-hero. He threatened to leave the project if forced to cast someone else. The gamble paid off. Russell, with his eye patch and snarling smirk, became iconic. Without Carpenter's insistence, Snake might have looked and felt completely different. It's a pivotal what if that shaped the film's soul. 6. The Duke's theme music was written in one night with no edits. Isaac Hayes' Duke of New York theme was composed in a single night by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth. No rewrites, just raw energy and intuition. Hayes wanted a bold, bombastic entrance, and Carpenter delivered rapid fire with a pulsing synth melody and dramatic brass accents. The result is cinematic perfection. Every bold chord demands attention. It's surprising to think such an iconic moment was born in a flash, not a polished score session. That spontaneity gives the film its pulse, making music feel like adrenaline more than mere background. 5. Prison extras were real East Street. Louis residents, not actors. To bring authenticity to Snake's prison world, many background actors were actual locals from East St. Louis, guys from the street, not trained performers. Carpenter wanted their behavior to feel real, unscripted, and unpredictable. They weren't scared of lighting, cameras, or shouting. They brought it to life. That edgy energy added grit and rawness to the prison scenes, making them feel lived in rather than staged. It's one reason Escape quickly felt real-world brutal instead of polished Hollywood. Those men walking in the background were more than extras. They were ghosts of real desperation. 4. Ernest Borgnine's Cabby character was a late, wild addition. Cabby, played by Ernest Borgnine, is a memorable guide in Snake's hellish world. But he wasn't in the original script. Carpenter and co-writer Nick Castle added him late in production to give Snake a guide with humanity. Borgnine's folksy charm and big band storytelling made the character instantly iconic. His scenes helped anchor the film's chaos, grounding Snake and viewers with a touch of warm humanity. That spontaneous addition became one of the film's most beloved relationships. Proof sometimes the best moments come from last-minute creative leaps. 3. Escape's soundtrack wasn't recorded in a costly studio. It came together in Carpenter's garage. John Carpenter co-composed the score with Alan Howarth, but they didn't lock themselves away in a high-end studio. Instead, They brought the project straight into Carpenter's garage using synths like the ARP, Prophet 5, and a Lin LM1 drum machine, plus borrowed guitar, piano, and editing gear. In 1981 terms, MIDI didn't exist, so Howarth manually synced audio to playback of the film dialogue using headphones and fine timing. That lo-fi setup produced the movie's pulsing, minimalist tension perfectly. It's amazing that such a hard-hitting, iconic sci-fi score came not from Hollywood's elite, but a DIY garage studio. Talk about low-budget dreams waiting in the wings. 2. The futuristic prison wall cost nearly half the film's $6 million budget. One of the most dramatic elements on screen is the towering broken prison wall encasing Manhattan. That structure alone gobbled up almost half of the film's entire $6 million budget. To build it, the production designed massive panels in East Street, Lewis with steel framing, concrete textures, and scorched paint, wrought for maximum menace. The wall wasn't just a backdrop. It was a budget-breaking force of nature. It set the claustrophobic tone. Snake isn't just escaping a city. He's escaping a concrete tomb. That much investment in one element shows how critically Carpenter and his team viewed it, not just art, but world-building necessity. 1. The President's Rescue finale was rewritten after test audiences booed hard. After premiering for test audiences, the climactic rescue of the President didn't land as intended. The room erupted with jeers. Viewers found it too upbeat, too cinematic for this world-weary dystopia. So Carpenter sat down with co-writer Nick Castle and reshaped the final act. Snake's escape became bleaker, more ambiguous, sharply in line with the film's tone of cynical survival. The President's eerie expression, the off-key applause, the moral ambiguity, it all emerged from that unexpected audience feedback. The film's ending transformed, less hero's victory, more hollow triumph. That shift turned the finale from conventional redemption into a haunting, lugubrious shrug and made the film unforgettable. If you loved these wild behind-the-scenes secrets, there's a lot more waiting for you. Check out the next video on screen for another cult classic breakdown. Don't miss it. Every story is stranger than fiction, and you're part of it.